is Flight of the Monarchs. About our speaker, Ed is from Houston. He graduated from Galena Park High School. Ed has BS and MS degrees in wildlife management from Texas A&M and an MS in chemistry from the University of Houston. He taught high school science for 6 years, then worked for ExxonMobil for 29 years. Ed has lived in Sun City for 15 years. He wrote that he has always had a fascination for nature and animals. He is currently the co-chairman of the Nature Club's Bird Sig and chairman of the Butterfly Sig. Ed, you've got it.
Okay.
Great, Ed. We see it and we can hardly wait. There you go.
Okay, well, I'm Ed Rosenberg. She said I'm a chairman of the Butterfly Sig. When they wanted to get a butterfly group going about 5 years ago, I said I would chair it until they found somebody to do something about butterflies. And so far that person hadn't shown up. So I'm still chairman of the group. Hey, we'll talk about the monarch butterfly today, and it's probably the best known butterfly in the United States, if not the world, because of all the publicity that's been on it, because of its long migration and its wintering by the millions in the mountains of southern Mexico. Okay, so just talk about migration for a second. It's the seasonal movement of large numbers of animals between 2 points, mainly because they can't tolerate colder weather or possibly drier weather, or their food sources cannot tolerate colder or drier weather. Usually migration is habitat restricted. That means the creatures have a specific habitat they depend on and are adapted to, and they move from one habitat to a similar habitat. In the northern hemisphere, they move north in spring, generally, and south in winter. Populations of creatures that live in the north are temperature limited, and they have to migrate or go into a torpid state as temperature drops. Then in the spring, they fly north to repopulate as temperatures rise. They follow food supplies going north. Now, butterfly migrations, talk about that for a second. In addition to monarchs, other butterflies also migrate to avoid cold or dry weather or to find available food supplies, but none undertake the long two-way migrations of up to 2,500 miles like the monarch. And a few of the butterflies that do migrate are the painted lady, American lady, the common buckeye, the red admiral, the cloudless sulfur, the question mark, the mourning cloak, American snout, clouded sulfur, the sachem, and the fiery skipper. Now, except for monarchs, we have little knowledge of butterfly migrations. We know they cannot tolerate freezing weather in the northern and central South, northern and central North America. Sorry about that. The monarch southerly migration usually starts in September or October. The larval plants do not grow in their wintering sites in Mexico, so butterfly reproduction is dormant until spring. In spring, this generation mates and flies north to lay eggs in places where larval food plants are plentiful. Now, this is the monarch, orange and black butterfly. And people that don't know butterflies call any orange butterfly a monarch. But there are some that look specifically like the monarch, a lot like the monarch. These three butterflies, the queen, which we have quite commonly here in Sun City all year long. You can see them almost all year. They do undertake migration, but they've never found where the queen goes to. This is the soldier, very similar. It's a South Texas butterfly that very rarely ever gets up into our area. And the viceroy. You know, the viceroy is well known. It's often mentioned in biology classes because it's a mimic of the monarch, and it has evolved to look like the monarch butterfly. Now, the monarchs eat milkweed, and milkweed, the white sap of the milkweed contains chemicals called cardiac glycosides. And an animal, the monarch butterfly stores in the larval stage and even in the adult stage with nectar, the food, the glycosides from the food they eat. And then an animal that eats a monarch butterfly or a monarch larva ingest these cardiac glycosides, and it can make them extremely sick or even kill them. But if a bird, for instance, eats a monarch or a monarch larva and survives, it probably won't eat a second one. And the viceroy depends on this aversion to protect itself from predatory animals. Now, monarchs living west of the Rocky Mountains hibernate in and around Pacific Grove, California. Monarchs living east of the Rocky Mountains mostly migrate to the mountains of central Mexico and hibernate in the same area of fir trees each year. They're the only insects that migrate 2,500 miles each way annually. No single butterfly completes the entire round trip each year. The generation leaving the sites in Mexico migrates as far north as Texas and Oklahoma. The second and third generations then return to breeding locations in the northern United States and southern Canada. The fourth generation migrates from the northern United States and Canada directly southward toward wintering sites in Mexico. Now, this generation lives for up to 8 months. Other generations of butterflies, of the monarch butterfly, live only 2 to 6 weeks. Here's a graphic of the monarch's migration. They start here in the mountains of southern Mexico in March and fly up to about as far north as Texas, Oklahoma, and breed here in the American South. They then move further north by these light blue lines here indicate that, and the second generation and reproduce, and then their offspring move further north still to area indicated by these dark blue lines along the northern tier of states in the US and in southern Canada. Then the generation that's hatched around late September, October in the northern states, then migrates down, as indicated by these red arrows, to the mountains of Mexico, where they go into a dormant state and live on their body fat for the winter months, and then start north again in March of the following year. This is what the trees in the mountains of Mexico look like when the migrated monarchs have arrived and have kind of set up shop in the trees there. Now, there are threats to the monarch migration. In the US, habitat loss is a big problem with conversion of land for agriculture and also development, like Sun City. And then another is the removal of native plants. The lack of availability of milkweed is a problem. This is the host food for monarch caterpillars. The ethanol mandate, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the ethanol mandate, but it's a law that was passed a decade or more ago that states that gasoline sold in the US has to be at least 10% ethanol to cut down on emissions of gases that supposedly cause global warming. Now, because there's an increase in ethanol, which is made from corn, the price of corn has gone up. So farmers are planting more land to grow more corn, where they used to plow up and leave a fallow strip around their fields. Now they plow into that strip and plant corn almost up to the roads. And this eliminates the habitat for milkweeds, which is the host food of the royal monarch cat splitters. Also, this causes a loss of the nectar plants needed by adults. And another problem is the use of pesticides, because pesticides used on crops are not very selective, and they kill butterflies as well as harmful agricultural pests. And there's habitat loss in Mexico from illegal logging around the wintering habitat. The indigenous people there cut down hibernation trees for use in building roads, houses, and farms. And it's difficult to explain to people there who've been doing subsistence farming for years why they cannot cut down a tree for one of these purposes, building houses, building farm buildings, building fences. So they can't understand why they cut down these trees because of bugs living in them. Now, the groups such as Monarch Watch and others that study the monarchs and are trying to preserve habitat for them have started going down and recruiting these people as guides and people to take care of the hibernation trees there, and explain to these people, look, if you keep these butterfly trees here, the trees where the butterflies are, and where the butterflies can come down here in the winter, the gringos will come down here and to see them. The gringos bring money, and they'll spend money to see the butterflies. And this has changed some of the attitudes down there, and has been important in preserving the trees. The loss of these trees threatens the future of the species, and estimated population numbers of monarchs underscores the need for conservation measures to reverse these trends. And one thing to consider about this is that they don't go down and count butterflies. They don't go out with a clipboard and check off 1, 2, 3, 4, 3,165,000 butterflies. butterflies are not counted. The area of the forest hosting the monarchs is estimated in hectares. A hectare is 10,000 square meters, or about size of 2.5 football fields. It's estimated that there's about 5,000 butterflies per square meter. And that would come out to 50 million butterflies per hectare. And it's estimated that they need to annually have at least 6 hectares for a sustainable population, which would be about 300 million butterflies. Now, this is a chart from Monarch Watch, and they can be reached at monarchwatch.org on the internet. This chart shows the total area occupied by monarch colonies at overwintering sites in Mexico. And this chart goes back to the winter of 1994-95. And this shows the approximate area in hectares occupied by the migrating butterfly colonies. And here you can see that in the winter of 1996-97, there were a little over 18 hectares, which would come out to about 1 billion monarch butterflies. But you see the population numbers have gone down and up and down and up over the last 25 years. Now, in the 1994 to 2019 season, over that 25-year period, the average number of the area occupied by monarch colonies was about 5.5 hectares. In the last 15 years, that seasonal average has dropped to about 3.4 hectares, which both those numbers are below, what they consider the sustainable the area necessary for a sustainable population of monarchs. Now notice that in 2017, 2018, that winter, there were about 2.5 hectares of area occupied by the monarch colonies. In 2018, 2019, that number was up to 6.05, or roughly the amount of area necessary for the sustainable number of monarch, which is about 300 million. Unfortunately, last winter, the number dropped to about 2.8 hectares, which comes out to about 141 million butterflies. So the number, you may have noticed this year, we did not see as many monarch butterflies. And hopefully this trend will improve this year. The winter of 2020 and 2021, and this number should come out sometime in January or February from Monarch Watch, and it'll be interesting to see where the monarch populations numbers fall this year. That's about all of my program. We'd like to go on to.
Wonderful. Before you do that, though, people have got a lot of questions for you, Ed. So I hope you don't mind. Okay. Betty wants to know about, do they have any fat on their tiny little bodies?
Yes, they eat. They really fill up on nectar anywhere they stop migrating back. especially back to Mexico,
Mhm.
they fill up, and now they're kind of like you talk about hummingbirds that fill up, and when they migrate, well, the monarchs do this, and they probably almost double their weight
Wow,
in,
do they
in
eat it?
fat
Oh,
by
okay.
filling up on the nectar.
Do they eat anything besides milkweeds?
Monarchs will. You talking about the adults?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the adults will uh, uh, feed on nectar from a wide variety of flowers.
Okay, so why do
Almost
they need milkweeds?
Ma'am,
Why do they need milkweeds if they can eat all sorts of flowers?
well, the larvae they only lay their eggs on milkweed. The young feed on the milkweed.
Okay, so you
The
got to have
adults
the
are,
milkweeds for that.
yeah.
Well,
Yes.
that's wonderful. Now, somebody asked that they said they saw a lot of uh, monarchs on blue mist flower. And do they eat that?
That's one of their favorite nectaring plants. The young do not feed on them. They don't lay eggs on the blue mist flower.
Okay, but that is a good one for nectar.
It does. It's a good one for almost any butterfly.
Okay, so what time of day do my monarchs migrate?
Well, seem like I see them more flying, away from above the ground quite a bit. I see them more in the afternoon, so they probably when we see them here only when they're basically when the short period of time when they're passing through, and they breed here in March, April, May, and then they head on north and they come back through here in October to November, and they don't breed here, but they sort of tank up for their final flight down into Mexico.
I see. I see. So how many varieties or species of butterflies do we have here in
In
Sun
Texas,
City?
in Sun City,
Yes, sir.
I've had about 70 species, I think, on our butterfly walks, and reported by other people. About 70, I think.
Wow. I thought you were going to say 7. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Texas has more butterfly species than any other state.
Texas does?
Yes, and actually most of those have been seen on a line, drawn across Texas about the level of Corpus Christi. We get some of those southern butterflies. We get a few of those that get up this far,
Mm-hmm.
like the American snout and the common maestra.
I gotcha. Well, someone wondered, do they fly both day and night when they're migrating? Or do we know?
I don't know. I suspect they may.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so really, what are their favorite flowers? Is it anything do they like almost any kind of flower?
They'll nectar on almost anything. They like the composite flowers, like the mist flower, the sunflowers. I believe they'll go to Greg Salvia. They'll feed on just about any flowering plant. They will get nectar from those flowering plants.
Right, but we need to be sure and plant the milkweeds also, right?
Right. The milkweed is the important thing because that's what the next generation feeds on before they continue their migration.
Okay, about how many varieties of milkweed are there?
I'm not sure. I can think of in books seeing about 5 or 6 species, but I'm sure there's more than that.
I've seen that we sell 3 species sometimes at the farmer's market. The Native Plant Society does. So I know about those 3.
I think that we have most prominent one we have here is one called antelope horns.
Oh, right. That looks like something from another world, I think. Does anyone have any more questions for Ed? Because he's going to tell you about this wonderful flight of the butterflies. Okay, why don't you tell him about that?
Okay, this video, you should have an email on your from the Nature Club that has a checkable link on it to get you in to see the flight of the butterflies. This is a really neat, it's a 41-minute movie. It's a dramatization of the search by a man named Urquhart, who was a Canadian, lived in Ontario, I believe. And he, as a child, he got really interested in the monarch butterflies and where they all went during the year. They were there in the spring, and then spring and summer, and left in the fall, and they never saw them again until the following year. So he wondered where they went to, and he became an entomologist and an expert in butterflies, and spent 40 years searching for where the butterflies went. And this is a dramatization of his search for where the butterflies went during the winter. It's a kind of an inspirational type story. It tells you that hard work and perseverance can often get you to the point where you want to be.
Well, Ed, this is just wonderful. I feel like I've learned a lot about butterflies. And is it okay someone just wrote in and said, is it okay to plant lantanas for monarchs?
I think monarchs will probably go to lantanas. There's all kinds of colors of lantana, but I believe the best one to plant, I believe, is the wild lantana. I think that's the one with the orange and yellow flowers on it.
Okay. All right. Well, Ed, we all want to thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And we're going to now head on over to Bill to talk about what's coming up next. Thank you again, Ed.
Yes.
Everyone is saying thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I have a program next month on In Search of Whooping Cranes. It's just about a trip to the Aransas National Wildlife Refuge down on the Gulf Coast, and talk about the whooping crane, and have some what I consider pretty good pictures I took. I'm not a photographer, I'm a picture taker. So, but it also have some photos of some of the other birds that are down there. It's a trip. It's well worth. You should go down there at least once to see them and ride on the boat that takes you right up almost within 10 to 15 feet of whooping cranes.
Great, Ed. I'm sure we'll all be there next month with you. Thank you again. And everyone, just go to your email and you'll be able to click on to the flight of the butterflies. Thank you again. Bill?